Today on Smackey's Garage, we're going to be changing the oil in our 2015 Audi A4 with the 2-liter turbo. This is going to be similar to a lot of Audi and Volkswagen vehicles that have the same engine. I'm going to walk you through step by step on how I do the oil change on this car. Now, the first question we need to answer is how often do you need to change your oil? Now, in this A4, Audi recommends 10,000 miles, which in my opinion is much too long. So for this vehicle, I change it about every 5,000 miles. And the way I track it is I look at the screen and I reset it every time. Look at when I get to 5,000 miles, then I know I need to change it again, or the check your oil light comes on because it's burned through enough, which is something you need to also watch out for on these cars. So we're going to go ahead and change the oil on this car. Then I'm going to show you how to reset it on the screen. Now, the first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to have to get the car up on ramps because that's the only real way to get under these cars easily to change the oil. Now, under the hood of the car, a few areas that we need to look at and be familiar with. So in general, this is the 2-liter engine. So we're going to need to take this off and work with that. So the only way to really get this off is you got to take off this. So you're going to unscrew this, and then you can just pull this up and out of place. Now in here, there's a few things that we're going to be working with. One, you have your oil filter right here. Two, you have where you put the oil to fill it right here. So we're going to take this out after we get it draining, but this I'm just put back on so nothing falls in while I'm working on it. And now all the work that we're doing to the car to get it ready to drain is we're going to have to get underneath it and take off the cover. There's going to be a bunch of small quarter turn, half turn screws that need to come out, and you can just take those off with a Phillips head. Now, all the screws that we're taking out are going to be just on this panel here. Now, all of them are just going to be take your screw, your Phillips head, turn it in, take them out. All of them are going to come out. The only ones that don't fully come out are the ones in the back that are over here. These stay captive within the panel. But after you get all these taken out, it should just drop right down. Also, not a bad idea to use safety glasses under here because there is a lot of junk that falls out of this. And then after they are all loose, you can just slide this back and put it underneath the car. So underneath the engine bay, here's the oil pan. Here's what you're going to be taking out to get the oil to start draining. You want to make sure you have your container under here before you take this out because the oil will start immediately draining. And this is going to be a torque spit that you need to take out to be able to get it to start draining. So I'm going to go ahead and get the torque spit for this, and then we can drain the oil. So it's going to be a T45 Torx. I'm going to go ahead and pull this out. Well, it looks like I am going to be getting covered with a little bit of oil today. Then I'm going to go ahead and let this drain for a little bit, and then when it's stopped, we'll replace the filter. All right, so while it's draining, I'm going to go ahead and take this filter out. Easiest way to do it is with a filter tool like this, that all you do is put it around it and then twist like this, and then it just loosens it up. And then I'm going to remove this now just so that it helps the oil drain while the engine's still warm. Well, up here, I'm also going to take the oil cap off because anything that's up here and open is going to help this drain more. Now, putting this back together, you do have the option to replace either the gasket, the copper gasket that's on it, or the entire bolt itself. It's really up to you if you want to do it. Now, for myself, I don't really change it that often. I look at it and make sure that it's still in good condition before I decide if I'm going to replace it or not. If it's in poor condition, I'll replace it. If it still looks okay, I'll just go ahead and reuse it. Now, for myself, I do check the oil level often, and I do look to see if there's any leaks. So for myself, I'm okay keeping it, but if you want to change it, go ahead and change it. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and drop this new oil filter in now that everything's done draining. And just when I put it on, I only put it on hand tight. But again, I check for leaks more often than probably the normal person would. All right, now that it's done draining, I'm going to go ahead and put this back in. And the torque on this car specifically, I believe, is 22 foot-pounds. I'd say make sure you check what the torque spec is on yours. For mine, I always put them in pretty tight by hand, but not too tight that it's going to strip it or cause any issues. So check the torque spec for your car, decide if you want to use a torque wrench or do it by hand, but on mine, I typically just do it by hand. Now with the drain plug back in, I'm going to go ahead and add 5 quarts to the engine. I'm going to use my Castrol Edge Euro car, the 5W40 that I always use in this car. There's a lot of different oils that people prefer that work for this, but this is the one that I've been using and I've been successful with. So I'm going to use this, and then I'm going to show you how to reset the service indicator on the dash. Now, one more thing that I like to do before I go ahead and reset the service indicator and put the bottom panel back on is I do like to look to see if there's any oil that's dripping out below the car, especially since it does have a cover that's going to go on it. So now that it's filled, the plug's back in. If there is dripping still, there's a problem. If there isn't dripping, you're good to put the cover on. So I'm going to go ahead and watch it for a few minutes, and then I'm going to go ahead, put the cover back on, and then we're going to go in the car and reset the service life indicator. All right, start the car. No funny noises. Should be okay. Now in the car settings, you go into here, then we're going to go into servicing and checks. Select that. Oil level. So you can't do that yet, but what you can do is you can go to the service intervals. It says next oil change, 150 days, 3,300 miles. If I spin that one more time, I can hit to reset oil change interval, and then push yes, and then it has been reset. So there you go, next oil change, 10,000 miles or 365 days. Okay, one thing that's important about these cars to know is there's no dipstick. When I say there's no dipstick, I mean there's no physical dipstick in the engine. There's a place where one could have been at some point that has a little cap that you can pull off and do nothing with, but on these engines, there isn't a physical dipstick, which is different than all my other vehicles that I've had. To make sure that you have the right level of the oil in the car, you actually need to start the car and warm it up. Now, to do this, you need to start the car, you need to let it warm up for at least 2 minutes, and then after you do that, you can go inside the dash and check the oil level. Now, the best time to check it is pretty much right after you filled it up, as soon as you can, because you want to make sure that you don't have too little oil in the car itself. Now you push the car button on the center console, then you'll rotate this, you'll go to servicing and checks. From this, with the car running, you'll see oil level. We're going to go ahead and click on that. It'll tell you the oil level is okay or it's not. It's really important to check this after you do your oil change. Now, if you made it this far in this video and you like what you're seeing here, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be doing a lot of different projects on this car, my other vehicles, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below in the comments, and I'll try to get to every single one of them. Now, I also have a membership program, so if you join that program, you'll get a lot of input into what are the mods I'm doing to my car, what I want to check out, and it'll give you access to have behind the scenes conversations with me as well, so that if you have extra questions or something that aren't getting answered, if you have some input with the channel, you can reach me there, and I'm taking a lot of different ideas. So if you want to join, feel free to. Now that's it. That's all you have to do. Now everything's back together. Thanks for tuning in to Smackey's Garage. I'll see you next time.